Hello, everybody, and welcome. Right, whilst I wait for people to join, if you're online, please let me know and let me know where you're joining me from today. I'll just give it a few more seconds and then I will get going. Right, so hello and welcome to the #1 strategy to accelerate your influence's impact as an introverted woman in leadership. And this is for you if you are a leader or you are not yet in a leadership role, but you are aspiring to be in a leadership role. And so what I'm going to be sharing with you today, we're going to be looking at what some of the common struggles are that introverted women leaders face. And I will be sharing how the strategy that you can apply can help you to overcome some of these challenges so that you can lead with confidence, influence, and impact. So looking at some of these common challenges or common struggles, things such as feeling invisible and unheard in meetings, struggling to confidently articulate yourself, and also experiencing imposter syndrome, perfectionism, and self-doubt. And these aren't necessarily applicable just to people who are introverted or just to introverted women, because all people experience them as well. All kinds of people can experience them as well. These are the common challenges that I see with the introverted women and men that I coach, that the research that I have done, and time again, it shows up in the work that I do with the clients that I coach. And oftentimes these challenges are as a result of being in environments where introversion isn't valued, or you've had a lifetime of being made to feel that because you are introverted, that you are not good enough, or that you are not as good as, or you should be more outgoing, more sociable, more talkative. You shouldn't be as quiet. And so sometimes the environment can have an influence on how you perceive yourself or how you feel in an environment, and in terms how you act and behave. So if what I'm saying resonates with you, you're not alone and you're not doing leadership wrong. You simply haven't had the right framework or the right tools that work for you as an introvert. And there are many leadership strategies and models and so forth. But oftentimes, a lot of what is available doesn't necessarily work for people who are introverted, because a lot of the leadership advice that is given is favored towards extroversion. It's extroversion bias. And many introverted leaders don't lead in that way. And what can happen is it can be exhausting when you try to lead from a place of extroversion, or you lead as if you are extroverted. It can be exhausting, it can be stressful, and it can lead to burnout. And putting on extroverted behavior, or what's known as counter-dispositional behavior, can lead to exhaustion, as I've said, and that is not having the impact And so a different approach is needed. We need a different approach, one that recognizes and honors the quiet strengths that you bring. And this is where my impact framework comes into play. And so if you're feeling unseen or unheard at work, if you're struggling to speak up confidently in meetings, or if self-doubt is stopping you from stepping up as a leader, you're in the right place. And so the challenges, as I've touched on, are things, and just to sort of go into them a little bit more, things like being overlooked when it's in a noisy environment, getting your voice heard, struggling with visibility and self-promotion. And I often have conversations when I'm doing talks and workshops on personal branding for introverted leaders, visibility for introverted leaders. Participants will often say that a lot of what is required for personal branding, visibility, doesn't come naturally to them as introverts. And their work should speak for itself. And yes, in an ideal world, your work would speak for itself, and talent would be recognized as just for talent, regardless of whether it's loud, regardless of whether you're quiet. But unfortunately, we are not in an ideal world. And if you want to be seen, be heard, and get ahead, then you may need to think about how you are showing up, how you are presenting yourself, and how you are coming across. And so navigating the biases that favor extroversion requires an understanding of what those biases are and how you can show up as yourself and still have the influence and impact that you want to have. And so, as introverts, you have the ideas, but you need the space to share them. And the thing is, if you don't take action and you don't become someone who is able to self-advocate, then you may find that your career stagnates, or that you don't fully utilize your strengths, or you're constantly second-guessing yourself, or we experience the emotional exhaustion from pretending to be someone that you're not. And so being able to lead with confidence, influence, and impact, you need to be intentional about it. And that's where my framework comes in. And so I'll just run you through the framework, and then I will go a little bit deeper into each element of it. So impact is the framework, and that stands for I is for intention, and that's know what kind of leader you want to be, visualizing it, defining success on your terms. Mindset, and that's about challenging your limiting beliefs that you hold about yourself, building that self-trust, that self-confidence, being able to self-regulate. Presence is about the piece, the presence, and that's about being able to command the room with a quiet authority. You don't have to be loud to stand out as a leader, but you do need to have presence. It's about being able to speak up assertively and confidently and embodying your value. Alignment, that's about aligning with what it is that you are wanting to achieve, and being clear about what you need to do in order to get there and to take the action that is required in order to make it happen. And courage, which is a C, that C is for courage, and that is about being bold, taking that bold action and not being fearful of taking the action that is needed, not being fearful of speaking up and having that influence that you need. And trust is about credibility and gaining trust of the people that you lead, the people that you want to influence, and the people that you want to have an impact with. And so if I go back to I for intention, and if you look at how we break that down, so it's about having a vision for what it is that you want to achieve and getting clear about what that vision is, whether it is your leadership style, your leadership career, or it's your department, your team, your organization that you are leading, getting clear about the vision that you have, and having that vision, what that looks like, what that feels like, what difference that will make, and being clear about what is needed in order to make it happen. So having the clarity about what is needed for you to make that happen. What are the steps that you need to take? What is the action that you need to take? And then it's about being strategic about it. The more senior you become as a leader, the more strategic you need to be. So it's about knowing the bigger picture. And even if you're still in a junior role or you're starting out in your career, being strategic and developing a strategic outlook for seeing the bigger picture in terms of what how you fit into that bigger picture and what it is that you want to achieve. And also, the final element is about focus, being focused and not letting the distractions take you away from what it is you're focusing on and what you're wanting to achieve. Taking that focused, consistent action will get you results. And addressing procrastination, that is often a biggie I see in terms of being distracted or focusing on those things that are not necessarily going to get you the outcomes that you want, but may be a welcome distraction because you're overwhelmed or you're uncertain about how to go about things. So addressing procrastination so that you can take that focused, consistent action. So to give you an example, Alex, and the name has been changed for confidentiality reasons, was a senior leader who came to me for coaching because they were a bit overwhelmed and they weren't sure about how they needed to or what they needed to do to drive things forward. They lacked clarity, they lacked the vision. And so what we did was we worked on them becoming clear on what their vision was and why this was important. And then once they got that clarity, they were clear about what their vision was, it was then easier for them to identify what action they needed to take. And so I coached them into translating this into an action plan, challenging their self-limiting beliefs that they believed that they could achieve it. And with that clarity and action taking, they were equipped to go and achieve the goals that they wanted to achieve. So looking at mindset, and that is all about having the belief in yourself to do what you need to do and having the confidence to do that. And so M, as for mindset, as I said, that's having that self-belief. And part of that requires self-awareness. So being self-aware, knowing what your limitations are and how you can address them. Having the self-awareness to know the environments where you thrive, the environments where you don't, and having the self-awareness to be aware of what energizes you, what depletes your energy. And self-awareness is developed through self-reflection, through feedback, and through self-observations, and utilizing your strengths. And when I say utilize your strengths, I mean focus on your strengths and not the strengths or those things that you feel that you should have as or focusing on those strengths that your extroverted colleagues may have, because that's something that I often see people who are introverted who think that they should be more extroverted, focusing on trying to develop those extroverted skills. But what that happens then is it goes against who they naturally are, because that is not who they are. And so they're not utilizing their strengths. And when we utilize our strengths, we're naturally more motivated, more empowered, more engaging, naturally more confident. And it's better for your overall well-being. And so being able to utilize your strengths, that is key in helping you with your mindset. And the fourth element of this is self-regulation and being able to manage your emotions. And the self-awareness, developing the self-awareness will enable you to recognize when you need to be able to regulate those emotions. So not letting your emotions lead you, but being able to regulate them and being able to manage those emotions that are not helping you, those emotions that limit you, those emotions that hold you back from what you are capable of achieving. And so to give you an example from a case study, Nicola, who was a director, and again the name has been changed for confidentiality reasons. So Nicola was a director, and her confidence had taken a hit, and she was quite low in resilience because she'd experienced the previous she'd had a previous experience of bullying and harassment. And when it came to her peers and engaging her staff, she was okay. She was confident, but she didn't have that same level of confidence when it came to speaking with board members or with senior executives, and also when she was in environments where she didn't feel comfortable. And so what we did was we worked on developing her resilience and increasing her self-awareness and addressing the self-limiting beliefs that had held her back. As a result of this, she started to feel more confident, regardless of the situation or the environment that she was in. And that helped to improve her leadership and effectiveness and her relationship with the board members. And so moving on to P, which is presence. And this is about being more visible, increasing your visibility, but doing it in a way that feels authentic to you. So identify those activities that you can do that come more naturally, that feel more authentic, that help to raise your visibility. And, you know, if you need support in all what I'm sharing with you, I will be telling you about my Impact Club towards the end of this session. So how can you be more visible? What do you need to do to be more visible? Who do you need to be more visible by? And think about how you can go about doing that. The other element of presence on my framework is assertiveness, and being able to confidently hold your own when you are being challenged in a meeting about an area that you're an opinion that you're expressing or an idea that you're putting forward. Being able to assertively express your opinions and let people know why it is that you think what you think is the best solution. And being able to speak up confidently as well. And in meetings can often be very challenging for introverted leaders, or not just introverted leaders, but people who are introverted, because they don't necessarily allow for the preference or processing information that introverts prefer. So processing the information and then speaking. A lot of meetings don't allow for that. So it's about identifying how you can be your best in a meeting so that you can make a valuable contribution. But don't think that you just have to speak for the sake of speaking. Don't think that you have to be speaking constantly. But it's about letting your voice be heard, about identifying the ways in which you can make a valuable contribution in meetings. So preparation is key here, doing the preparation so that you can do a lot of that thinking in advance of the meeting, so that when you go into the meeting, it's then easier for you to gather your thoughts together and speak. And the final element of presence is about influence, and having that influence, whether it's in meetings, whether it's with teams, whether it's with board members, having that influence that you want and need, being able to influence people. And I covered this in, I think it was it last month's LinkedIn Live or a few LinkedIn Lives ago, about how you can develop that influence. So again, those introverted strengths that you have are very good at building and developing relationships and rapport and listening and empathy, all of which are components of influence. And then moving on to alignment. And alignment, that is about positioning yourself for what it is that you need to achieve and being strategic about it. Those of you who have followed me for some time will have heard me share an example from my experience of how I positioned myself for my last promotion before I left employment to start my coaching business. And that was, I'd been at an event in another region, and the head of operations for the region there. I was to get my last promotion was there, and she told me that she was going to be going on maternity leave. She was recently found out she was pregnant. She was going to be going on maternity leave the following year, and that meant that a position would come up in that region. And so I decided then that I was going to go for that. That I wanted to position myself, put myself in the best position to make that happen. So what I did was I saw that a role at the same level that I was at had come up in that region. And I applied for it with the intention of making a sideways move, so that if I was successful, which thankfully I was, it was quite a tough interview as well, but I was successful. I got that sideways move. And then once I was in that region, I took on responsibilities. I took on roles that helped to raise my visibility, that helped me to position myself, that meant that when the role came about, when the person went on maternity leave and the role that I was positioning myself for was advertised, I had had quite an influence in that region through the activities and through the responsibilities that I had taken on. And so when it came for applying for the role, I applied for it. I had to do a presentation. And I was in my presentation, I was able to draw on the experience that I had demonstrated whilst I had been working in that region. And I was successful and I got the promotion. And so it's also about how you promote yourself as well. I know a lot of introverted people don't like self-promotion. I know a lot of extroverted people, a lot of women don't like self-promotion. But if you don't let other people know about your successes and achievements, then how are they going to know about you and what you have achieved and what you are capable of? Because, gone are the days where your work would necessarily just speak for itself. The way that we work now with globalization, hybrid working, you may not necessarily be getting seen by the people that need to know about you. So that's where thinking about self-promotion comes into play, and how you can do that. So what I've just talked about with my experience, I was promoting myself by the action that I was taking. So it didn't feel uncomfortable. It didn't feel like I was there talking about, oh, look at me, I'm so fabulous. That's not what self-promotion is. Self-promotion is about articulating how you are the best person for the role, articulating the difference that you've made and the impact that you've made. And the other element of alignment is your network. Developing and utilizing your network. Many introverts don't like networking, but networking, if you view networking as a way of getting to know people, getting to develop and nurture relationships, rather than looking at it as a meat market, as one of my coaching clients once called it, but looking at it as a way of getting to know people, and not feeling that you have to go networking and work the room speaking to lots of different people, but focus on developing connections, focus on who you want to connect with, and even being strategic about it as well, identifying who the people are that you want to connect with. And the last element of alignment, most importantly, is taking action. If you don't take action, you don't get results. So take action, because focused, consistent action gets you the results that you want. And the C, which is courage, that's about confidence, exuding that confidence. And it's not the absence of fear. Courage is not the absence of fear, but it's about being able to move forward, being able to take the action, being bold, even if you do feel fear. But by developing the mindset, managing your fears and self-limiting beliefs, it will help you to feel more confident and more courageous in taking the action, doing those things that you need to do. The other element is challenge, being able to challenge appropriately and not being afraid to, and that ties in with assertiveness, not being afraid to challenge where necessary, to speak your mind, having that confidence to do so. The third element is leadership and demonstrating leadership. Even if you're not in a leadership position yet, developing leadership you can still do by taking the lead where necessary, showing your leadership skills, letting people see that you're not afraid to stand up and lead. Showing that courageous leadership is important. And the fourth element of courage is being decisive, and making decisions, but making them well-informed decisions. And many introverts are, when it comes to decision making, when you're being put on the spot, can find that challenging. So it's about developing your decision making skills, so that you can be decisive, and you're not floundering about your decisions. And what can help you with that decisiveness is knowing your stuff, knowing and sort of getting an idea of potential things that could go wrong and how you could deal with them. So thinking in advance of what sort of things are likely to happen, and how that can be dealt with, so that you can, when you are put on the spot, you've got an idea of any challenges that you may face or where things may go wrong, that you are being decisive about how they can be addressed. And the final element of trust, that's about being authentic. And the research shows that when introverts are authentic, it is so much better for their overall well-being. You feel more confident, you feel yourself, you feel stronger, you're more attractive, when people are more attracted to you because you are being yourself. And I know there's a lot of pressure for people to be a particular way, particularly people who are introverted, that you feel that you have to conform to a particular type. I know if you are from marginalized groups or underrepresented groups, you may feel that you can't show up as your authentic self. But not being your authentic self is going to have an effect on how you feel about yourself. If you're trying to be someone that you're not, you're going to feel inauthentic, and it will come across as inauthentic. And when I say be your authentic self, it's not that you have to wear your heart on the sleeve and show everybody every single aspect of who you are. But it's about feeling that you can show up as yourself, that you don't have to put on a mask, you don't have to pretend to be something that you are not. So developing that, it takes knowing who you are, understanding who you are, accepting who you are, and recognizing what you stand for, what your values are, because part of trust as well is about integrity, being a person of integrity, and it's about credibility as well. So demonstrating that you are a credible person, and it's also about being reliable. So that is the strategy based on my impact framework, because real impact looks like being respected without needing to be the loudest, leading from your strengths, taking up space confidently as your authentic self, and growing your influence without compromising who you are. And so for those of you who want my support to lead with confidence, influence, and impact, my Impact Club starts next Tuesday. And it's a monthly group coaching space for introverted leaders and aspiring leaders. So you don't have to be in a leadership position yet, but you aspire to. And it's all about me equipping you with the tools and the techniques that will enable you to develop that confidence, to develop that influence, and to be impactful. And you'll get live group workshops, practical tools that I'll share with you based on my impact framework. You'll get peer support and accountability from a private WhatsApp community, and you will be amongst a community that understands introversion. And all this is just £25 a session plus VAT. And so I will share the link in the comments, but if you go to my profile, you will see it in there. If you go to my website, aboundingsolutions.com, look for the Impact Club, or if you search Eventbrite, the Impact Club, you will find it there. But I will come back and put a link in the comments for anybody who wants to join me. And so before I wrap up, does anyone have any questions? Whether it's about anything that I've shared about Impact, the framework, the Impact Club, or whether it's about your leadership journey and anything that you may want support with. I'm happy to answer any questions. And if you don't want to ask your question openly, then send me a DM and I will answer your questions. Right, so it doesn't look like there are any questions. I do appreciate that sometimes there can be a delay in them coming through, but if you do have questions, I will just put them in the comments. I will come back and look for them, or like I said, send me a DM. So thank you for those of you that have come online, and for those of you that watch on the replay, I hope you find this beneficial. Until the next time, bye.